you guys are ready for a party. Nothing more exciting than line by line through the CSS profile.
Hope everybody ate their Wheaties.
That's it.
I don't know. I might be dating myself by referencing that commercial.
Even I had that one, Peggy. You're okay. You're okay.
Oh, even you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Even a couple generations removed.
All
Even,
right, right.
Yeah.
The fountain of youth over here.
Yes. Welcome, everybody. Tell us where are you in the country? We always like to see where you're at in the country. We got we got the North Shore of Boston represented up here, Beverly, Mass. We got Peggy. We got some of your folks out in Seattle there.
Yeah.
We were just talking about South Carolina with a Notre Dame Clemson game coming up on Saturday.
Go Irish.
Go Irish. Danbury, Connecticut. Spoke with Danbury school counselor this morning, as a matter of fact. We got some Georgia. Pleasantville, New York. We love that. Asheville, Carolina. I was just there a couple weeks ago. Right there. Lived up to the billing. Absolutely lived up to the billing.
All right.
Awesome.
We already got a question in the Q&A. Somebody's trained.
That's right.
So, little bit of housekeeping for people that are new to our webinars. We very much welcome questions. We can't promise that we're going to get to all of them. We do our best, but we'll have a lot of registrants. You guys are still rolling in. Somebody just said hi, Peg, but I didn't see their name in the chat. So we will do our best, but just up front, we most likely will not get to all the questions. So just all we can say is we'll do our best. So we'll look for ones that are similar and call out stuff live if needed. So, but as I said, please put the questions in the Q&A. I know we told you to put stuff in the chat, but in general, please put it in the Q&A. We have one place to look and you can be anonymous. And yes, I see that question, David. We are recording this and we will send it out to you. So if you have to step away or you're you have a conflict or whatever, no problem. You will get it tomorrow, or you just want to listen to us again because we cover so much powerful information, right, Carp?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, and this, obviously we're focused on the CSS profile tonight. That's why most of you are here, but we welcome questions with anything as it pertains to this ecosystem, right? It doesn't have to be CSS profile specific. If you have a personal question, you can be anonymous, right? So be anonymous, ask your question. We're not going to get to them all. Like Peg said, we're going to do our very best. We're not going to be able to get to every question. If we don't get to yours, please don't take it personally. It's not, we're not picking and choosing. We're just doing the best we can here. And we'll talk about when we end tonight, how to interface with us moving forward, right? Specifically, if you don't get your questions answered, you need more assistance on the CSS profile. We have solutions there, right? So we'll talk about those when we end tonight. And you're not going to be able to do the CSS profile as you're following along tonight. It's more about kind of concepts, right? And here's how this works. Here's what to do. Here's what not to do. So just kind of keep that in mind. And I think those are our for me, like kind of our housekeeping things. For those of you that are meeting us for the first time, thank you for showing up. We appreciate it. We're always grateful that people, for those of you on the East Coast that are, past business hours here, tuning in to hopefully learn from us. And for those of you on the West Coast, and I see a couple of Hawaiis there during business hours, right, that are tuning in, we're grateful that you pay attention. And this is and for those of you that know us a little bit, you know us, right? And this is what we do every day, trying to educate folks on the best way to navigate this really challenging process, right? And if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling anxious, I promise you are in good company, right? Something that we say every day, internally and externally, it's your money and it's your kids. No kidding, you're feeling anxious, right? So that's such a normal place to be right now. Our hope is that through our education and just having a sounding board and a place to go with your questions, we can alleviate some of that and help make a really overwhelming, complex process hopefully a little bit simpler and a little bit easier to navigate. And that's what we're here for. I've been doing it for just about 2 decades, 19 years now. and I've done it thousands of times over, and I love it, right? And Peggy, the fairy godmother of financial aid herself, not only has she done it professionally for an awful long time, but she's lived it and breathed it and sent her own kids, specifically twins, off to college. So Peg, I'm sure you can relate to these folks a little bit.
Yep. And you'll get through it. It's the good news is you're going to do the CSS first, and then when the FAFSA comes, there are some changes. So it's going to be a little bit more crazy, but it's going to be much shorter and it'll feel like a piece of cake. So, all right, so let's kick this off. So I'm going to share my screen, and Matt didn't mention, but we are College Aid Pro. And for those of you who don't know us, like, this truly is our mission. And this is what gets us, the two of us, out of bed every day to end the student debt crisis by empowering families, you, and I know there's some IECs on here, there might be some school counselors, anybody that's helping families, or directly to all of you, to shop smarter for college. And being educated, and this is one step of the process, is a huge part of it. So there we are. Little disclaimer here, I'm not a lawyer, but and it says FAFSA on here because normally we're doing both. We will do the FAFSA in a little bit when it goes live, but as Matt said, I'm going to walk through a bunch of the CSS profile where most of the questions happen. These forms are submitted by you. The submitters are responsible for what they provide. It's like your tax return, right? So just keep that in mind. And you always want to be honest. But so now I'm going to invite you. I wish I had some soothing music to play. Just relax. I know this is a stressful part of the process, and people kind of build it up in their mind. So hopefully by the end here, you'll realize, hey, it's not all that bad. And we're going to talk about how we can really take it off your shoulders. So you can take breaks while you're doing these. You can save and come back later, and you can fix mistakes. The goal is to not make mistakes, but if you do, it's all good because you can go back and you can resubmit. So just like everything in this process, it probably requires a lot of deep cleansing breaths, okay? And I'm a big whale person, so hence the whale. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt.
Your spirit animal, so to speak, right?
I am.
And hopefully most of you out there are healthy enough where when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you can just do the tree pose or whatever, and then you feel better. If you're not if you're like myself and you're not that advanced, what our colleague, my dear friend, Uncle Bill, we call him internally here, what he recommends, his prescription that I think is pretty tried and true, is that for the FAFSA, you can get through the FAFSA with a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, beer or 2, no problem. The CSS profile is what earns its reputation as getting people to pull their hair out. That's going to require a whole bottle of wine, 6-pack, maybe hard stuff. So whatever you need, whatever gets you to muscle through this thing, there's a couple different, maybe unhealthy and healthy, crutches here to get you through it. By the way, I'm talking to parents only with that, 21 plus only. So if there's any students tuning in, that is not for you, tree pose only. Okay, if you haven't already, you got an email from us earlier today encouraging you to set up your free CAP accounts here, right? Because the focus is the CSS profile, but this is a piece of the greater scheme here, right? A piece of the broader puzzle. And we want to make sure that okay, well, which colleges are going to give me financial aid? Which colleges are going to give me scholarships? How much? What do they require? Do they require the FAFSA, the CSS, both, whatever it happens to be? Where do I find private scholarships? Everything is baked into that platform. So, make sure that you make sure that you set up your account if you haven't already, because for every pain point of the process, we're going to have a solution for you. Okay. I think, Peggy, that's good for now. And hope if you didn't share that link, please do.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was typing away. I do it right now.
You're good, pal. So before we kind of drill down into the nitty gritty of the mechanics and the form itself, Let's just zoom out quickly, and for some of you, this will be redundant. For others that are kind of just tuning in for the first time, let's just talk about what is financial aid, right? Why should I even care about a CSS profile? In short, financial aid is a discount from the sticker price, right? From the rack rate. The terminology the colleges use, the cost of attendance. So these are the all-in tuition, room.
Bless you.
Sorry, did I mistime my mute there?
Bless you. I thought I was freezing up here.
No, that was just me. That was me. Excuse me. So the financial aid, again, in its simplest terms, a discount from the sticker price, a discount from the cost of attendance. And there's three broad buckets, three broad ways in which this can happen. We're most focused on the first two because that's free money. That's money coming right off the top, right? Need-based grants, okay, again, free money. These are discounts given from the college, the federal government, and sometimes the state government based on your family's financial profile, right? Largely your income and your non-retirement assets, and then how generous or not a particular college is going to determine whether or not you're eligible for need-based grants and how much. Merit-based scholarships, in some ways, the opposite end of the spectrum. They're not looking at your family's financial profile at all. They're looking at your student and their credentials. And this is the admissions office that's going to get their, kind of comprehensive application, resume, test scores, GPA, etc., and say, you know what? We'd love to have this kid on our campus. We don't care about the family's financial situation. We want to give them an incentive, a financial incentive to come here. We're going to offer a merit-based scholarship, right? And then the last type of financial aid we're less concerned with. It's called self-help financial aid. That's a sexy term for loans, right? So that is essentially money that they're giving us that's going to have to be paid back at some point, plus interest, or work study, which is essentially a job that our student might have on campus. So again, from a high level, that's what financial aid is. And Peggy, if you want, we can go to the next slide here. And I'll spend just, again, a minute explaining need-based financial aid, because every college is different. You're going to hear us say this a bunch tonight because it's true, and you're going to hear us say it a bunch anytime that you tune in, because every family's unique, every student's unique, and every college is unique. But anytime there's a universal rule, we want to understand how that works. In need-based financial aid, every college uses the same basic calculation or equation to determine your family's eligibility for need-based financial aid, and that's the cost of attendance, or the sticker price, minus your student aid index, SAI, okay? And if there's a difference between those two figures, that's how much you're eligible for in terms of need-based financial aid. Now let's unpack this a little bit here. The student aid index is a dollar amount that gets assigned to your family based on your income and assets, again, largely, primarily. There's other variables, but those are the biggies. And that's the first thing that you need to know. And again, for those of you that have already created your MyCap accounts, which I see is most of you, which is awesome, that is what is the foundation for determining your eligibility for need-based financial aid or not. And if there's a difference between the cost of attendance and your student aid index, that dollar amount is how much you're eligible for need-based financial aid. Now, just because you're eligible for need-based financial aid, it doesn't mean that you're going to receive all of that from the college, right? For some of them, you will. For some of them, you won't receive any. Some of them are in the middle. Again, that's where it's all college specific. And again, I'll kind of show you in a minute in the platform here what I'm talking about. And actually, Peggy, if I could share my screen for a hot minute, I will do just that.
And while you're sharing, I'm just going to answer, because people are writing in about submitting these forms and why we should submit the forms. We hands down, everybody should submit the FAFSA, and most people should submit both forms. Some schools want it on file for merit aid, and some schools, if you don't apply freshman year for aid, if something happens in your life, somebody passes away, somebody loses a job, COVID, they won't reassess you for aid again. So just keep that in mind.
Lots of reasons to submit the forms. no matter what, whether
That's just a
regardless of
couple.
your aid eligibility, as opposed to not, even if you don't apply for financial aid, which is confusing, but that's the recommendation for all families that work with us. So again, for most of you, I see you've already created your account, and just to give you a quick tour of what you're looking at, you see the SAIs, your family's SAI, staring you in front of the face. And to further complicate things, there's two different types of SAIs, right? Most public schools and most colleges, for that matter, use the federal SAI to determine your eligibility for need-based financial aid. But a lot of these private schools, specifically private schools that use the CSS profile, they use something called the institutional SAI. And for most families, there's a range there. Okay. And that's largely driven by two factors. Number one, if you're a homeowner, most schools that use the institutional SAI consider your home equity to be fair game. We're going to talk about that more tonight, specifically as it pertains to the CSS profile. But that's one huge variable. The other one is if you're a split household family, so you're divorced or separated, there's two biological parents that are not under the same roof. Federal SAI schools are only going to look at one household. Again, we will talk about this tonight in terms of who are they looking at, whereas most institutional schools will look at both households, right? So they're gonna be looking at the income and resources for both households. Now, in some ways, that's more than you guys need to know. What I want you focused on is how much are schools actually going to cost your family. Don't get distracted by the sticker price. I want you focused on your net cost. And all you need to do is create your account, put your information in, and we're going to tell you, are you going to get financial aid at this school? How much? Are you going to get scholarships? How much? Are you going to pay full sticker price? But we want you to know that information, ideally, before you hit submit to any financial aid application. Certainly, when we talk about early decision, certainly we need you to know before you sign that agreement, okay, that you have a really good understanding of about how much that school is going to cost you before you go early decision. So there's a heck of a lot more in the platform here. But I want to stay focused on the task at hand, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview of how you can leverage this piece of it, at least.
All right. Let me take over here. Oh, no, you're still going. Sorry.
You wish, Peggy. I'm almost done, pal.
I'm hogging. I'm trying to hog airtime.
Before I pass the mic here. So applying for financial aid, you heard me say it already. The main theme, the headline here is every school is different, guys. And you are responsible for figuring out, for the schools that you're applying to, how do they do business, right? If your kids are applying to 10 schools, which is pretty much the average at this year, okay, you're going to have, you have to look at them as 10 private businesses that all operate differently with different deadlines, different requirements. All of them are going to require the FAFSA. Some of them are going to require the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA. You're going to have your Princetons of the world that don't have the CSS profile, but they have their own institutional application, right? So you need to figure out, for the colleges that my kid's applying to, what do they require? When is it due? How do they need it? And don't trust them. And this is not a knock on them. This is just the deal. Don't rely on them to communicate with you. You need to be proactive in figuring out here, what do they need? How do they need it, etc. So please keep that in mind. Okay, go ahead here, Peggy. And again, we're peeking around the corner. Okay, we've got some questions about the FAFSA already. When is it going to be ready? The externally, okay, the public facing date in which it's going to be ready is December. They have not got more specific than that. We have some, I think, pretty reliable little birdies telling us that is looking more likely to be January at this point. But that is, again, take that with a grain of salt. That is by no means official. But at this point, continue to follow along with us. We have a pulse on this thing, but the FAFSA is not going to be accessible until at a minimum December, right? And it could be a little bit later. Just again, stay tuned. We'll keep you posted. One thing you can do right now is create your FSA IDs, right? We have the link here where essentially it is the student needs to create an account and parents need to create an account in order to actually submit the FAFSA, and that's something that you can knock out at this stage of the game through the link that we have provided here. But outside of that, we're sitting on our hands and waiting.
Yeah, that's another opportunity to take some deep breaths, because we're all in the same boat. You can't access the FAFSA yet. So, okay, so now to the task at hand. Let's talk about the CSS profile. So, this is a form required by a little bit more than 200 schools. So, mostly private. There's a few publics in there: UVA, William and Mary, UNC, Chapel Hill, and Michigan. If you've been in there, you've noticed they ask about home equity, they ask about all of your real estate, but also the home you live in, which is different than the FAFSA. And people have already written in and said, how do I value my home? You want to find the lowest defensible value. Kind of my like 3 commandments when it comes to these forms are: be honest, don't overestimate, and don't overshare. And when I get into the screenshots, I'll be reiterating that, because there's a lot of questions that are not required on the CSS profile. So it's the same thing with home equity. Like, you don't want to put an absurd value for your home. I mean, the colleges can go on Zillow, right? Redfin. But it's I need to sell my house yesterday price, right? So keep that in mind. Both parents, if you're divorced or separated, will be submitting this. The custodial parent will be submitting it with the student, and then the non-custodial parent will submit the non-custodial CSS profile. We're not going to go.
You know what? We've got enough questions about who the custodial parent should be on the FAFSA and the CSS profile. You want to just hit that now?
Yeah. So the custodial parent, this definition changed for the FAFSA, and the CSS is doing the same thing. So basically, and I just finished a question about this, it's the parent that provides the most financial support on a year look back from when you're submitting the form. So if it's even Steven to the penny, then it's whoever has the higher adjusted gross income. But I would say, and Matt would agree, like, it doesn't have to be even, right? If it truly is even, then do a little strategizing here, right? There's a gray area. So figure out how much each parent pays. And if it's close, have the parent that's better to submit the form spend $50 more on soccer or violin or whatever it happens to be. So you're being honest, you're following the rules, and you're playing the cards that are better for you to play as a family. So if you can make that happen, and you're amicable, it's going to help all of you. It's going to be potentially less money out of your pocket. So just keep that in mind. I don't think it should ever go to the adjusted gross income stage. That would have been a cut and dry way, but Congress didn't do it that way. So it's the parent. And just because you're receiving child support, that might not mean that you're providing less support. If the child's with you more and you've got a mortgage and you've got utilities. So hopefully I'm getting you to kind of understand where I'm going here with my thinking. Get out a spreadsheet. Some families, it is what it is, right? It's like this person just obviously pays a lot more, even if they're the higher earner. It is what it is, right? You shouldn't lie, okay? But sometimes a lot of people are 50-50. So keep that in mind. Business owners, you're going to have to disclose everything, answer the required questions about your business. And I'll show you that in a few minutes. So, and as we mentioned before, this form is, it's not a lot of fun, but you'll get through it. You'll get through it. So I'm going to share a different tab here, and I want to give you an idea of how you get in the form, and then we're going to actually look in there. So you're going to go to the cssprofile.collegeboard.org. Make sure that you're picking the 24-25, because that's the one you want to be in, right? That's the school year we're talking about. And then when you log in, and this is with your child's College Board login, if you're divorced, the custodial parent's logging in, that's how you get in. I had a mom yesterday who said, I went in under mine. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to do it again. So under your child's College Board login, almost every kid has it. It's APs, it's PSAT, SAT. So once you log in, this is my sample one, so I've started it. This is the dashboard. They're going to assign you this CB FinAid ID, and this I've already started, so I put in some schools. They're listed here. If you are divorced or separated, you're going to see this. This is where you provide the other biological parent's email. And then, as I said, you can go in and out of this and save. But just to give you a visual, this is what it looks like in here. When you're starting, you're only going to see getting started. And then as you go, you'll build. But once you've completed sections, as you can see, you can always go back in and edit. So until you've submitted it, you're good. And I'll show you a different screen at the end, a submitted one. You can even go in and make corrections. And then at the end, you can review your application. I strongly recommend that. If you're not close to your deadline, if it's not looming in a few hours, you might want to just sleep on it and then come back with a fresh set of eyes and just review it. You have to go through each page, but if you're not tired and you haven't been looking at it for hours, something might pop out like, oh, what was I thinking? That's not the right thing to have there. So that's definitely a step that you want to take at the end. So that's a good visual of your dashboard. Now let's go back into the slides here. And let's actually get in here so I can give you some visuals. So first thing that's just kind of funky and funny, and it was like this last year, when I first went in last year, when you're looking, you've got to add your schools. And the easiest way is to hit college program name and then just start typing the school instead of the state and searching through all the schools. But if you type the word university, it, at least for me, just keeps circling and circling. So just type the beginning of the school or Tufts or whatever it is, and then hit search. And then it'll come up and look like this, and you select it. And then there's a few questions. Are you going to live on campus? That you're going to answer, but just don't, for whatever reason, it's just quirky, just don't type in the word university into the search engine. So this was a great change that they made last year. There's a page that asks if any of these are applicable to you. If they are, definitely click it. Or if your adjusted gross income is less than 100,000, you will get this over here on the next page when you hit save and continue that tells you you don't have to pay to submit the CSS, which is, it's a nice little perk. So it's $25 for the first school and then $16 for all the subsequent schools. So just keep that in mind that that will be waived. So when you get at the end, you'll see all your schools listed, but it'll say 0. So you won't have to pay, which is great. I feel like I skipped through a slide, but if I don't see it after this, I'll go back. So want to talk about a couple, you know what? I'm pretty sure I did. So let me go. No, I didn't. I'm wrong. Shouldn't have guessed. Second guess myself. Okay. So here's a page that's asking for parent details. They ask for the parent social security number. This is not required, and I'm going to tell you in a minute that if something isn't required, you just don't provide it. It makes the form easier. You won't make mistakes, and you're going to be uploading all your tax returns. So you're not trying to hide anything. They're going to see your tax returns. They're going to see your social security numbers when you upload your forms, but I just don't like to share that anywhere I don't need to, and it really isn't needed. For the student, a lot of times it's used to bring the different pieces together. So for the student, you might want to include it, but here, this is on the parent page. You could leave it off. And then they ask a bunch of stuff, but they also ask for your education level. Don't share that. Again, don't overshare. If you've got a PhD, you're a lawyer, they're going to start thinking things, right, that might not benefit you when they're giving a package out or they're creating the financial aid package. So we recommend you just don't share that. So this was the slide I thought I passed. So you see here, I've mentioned already that some questions are required. And so you see here on this slide, all it's going to do is say required in parentheses, and you're not going to be able to mess up, because if you don't put something there, it's not going to let you save and continue. But our advice is, or our counsel is, don't answer questions that aren't required, just for the reason that I said before, right? Makes it easier. They're going to see your tax returns. Adjusted gross income, it's required. They tell you exactly where to get it on your 1040. So go ahead and provide that. Here, this is not required, so you don't need to answer anything. But the minute you click on yes or no, and you're going to see this a lot in the CSS profile, you can't, all you can do is toggle between them at that point. You can't say, I don't want to say yes or no, and pull it off. So if you're not going to answer it, just don't click a box. If you do by accident, then answer it honestly and don't worry about it, right? Just move on. Don't worry about it. Okay, couple other things that are required here in the tax realm. They ask you for the income federal taxes you paid. Follow the instructions. This is the same as the FAFSA, line 22. Don't look on your tax return 2 lines below and say, well, this is taxes and this is a bigger number. I'm going to put that number. This is the number you want to put, and then the higher the taxes you pay, the better in financial aid, because that's money you don't have to pay for college. It lowers your SAI. So get that number in there. Then how much did you earn from work? This is how they calculate your Social Security and Medicare you're paying. And again, that lowers your SAI because that's money. That's FICA. That's taxes you're paying that's not coming into the household. So for most people, it's on the line box 1 of your W-2. So those are key tax information that they're going to ask about. Now, you notice on this slide, I have some blue stars. So we're not getting in the weeds tonight about the FAFSA changes, and some of you have probably been on our webinars about it. So some of the FAFSA changes, the CSS is following suit, like the custodial parent definition that I just talked about, but others, they are not. So these are examples of things that won't be included on the FAFSA, but they are part of the CSS profile. And a big one is if you are saving pre-tax for retirement, which is very common. It's going to be on your W-2 box 12. And again, click on these little hints and look at them. They tell you exactly what they want here. It's D, E, F, G, H, and S, or O or S, not DD. That's your health insurance value that your company is covering, okay? So follow that. If you have an HSA, that's pre-tax, not your company putting money in your HSA, but just you. That's going to have to be disclosed. Alimony is disclosed. And if you are clergy or in the military, you have any sort of housing allowances, you got to disclose that on the CSS profile. So those are some differences. Another difference from the FAFSA.
Peggy, let me just go on record here. So I've said a few times, like we always do, and it's nobody's fault, but please ask your questions in the Q&A. And we got some enforcers in the chat, Peggy. They're just watching out for us, trying to get people to ask their questions in the Q&A, which we appreciate. We don't want it to get chippy in there. You know, there's a lot of emotions involved. We don't want to get chippy in there. We appreciate you watching.
A lot of deep breaths.
Again, we want to get to as many questions as possible. We have to focus our efforts and answer the questions just in the Q&A. So if you want to maximize your odds of getting your questions answered, please,
just copy it and paste it in the Q&A if you got them in the chat there.
Thank you. And by the way, phenomenal questions and participation and engagement, and we love it. But just again, please put them in the Q&A, but keep them coming.
All right, here's another group of, it's a concept in financial aid called untaxed income. So these are things that Uncle Sam doesn't tax you on, but the CSS profile wants to know about them. The good thing is the FAFSA will not, and we'll talk about that down the road, but that's why the star is here. So I don't want you to get confused. They're not perfectly aligned. And so these stars, this makes a CSS an institutional SAI higher. Workman's comp, untaxed disability. They give you a nice little cheat sheet here. So don't forget to click on these when you're in the questions. If you're like, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And you can see up here, this is required. So you've got to answer it, and you should answer it honestly. Okay, so that's another example. On the CSS profile, they've done this for years. They ask you about 2023, which we're almost done with, and then they ask you about 2024. It's not part of their calculation, but this is all part of this holistic sort of view they get of your family. So for the 2023, they're going to ask about other taxable income, your income from work, other untaxed benefits like 401k contributions. It's already November. I tell people, whatever you know you're going to make. If your boss is talking about a big bonus, don't put it in here if you don't know you're going to get it, right? Remember, don't overestimate while being honest. Same thing with 2024. If you're not sure about some stuff, put the lowest amount that you think. Again, it's not going to be part of that equation or that formula, but it just gives them an idea. If you've lost your job, I just worked with the dad earlier today. He's putting zeros in there, which will benefit him because he lost his job, and they're going to see that even though he's going to reach out. The question in the middle here, this is required. So if you expect to change, you got to mark yes or no there, right? You got to answer that question. So just always be looking out for that. I
And
saw a couple. Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Peggy, let me break in here because we're getting a lot of similar questions. If your student already applied early action and you did not submit the CSS profile yet, it's too late. You missed out on financial aid for this year. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding,
God,
buddy.
you don't do that to people who are trying.
Peggy, I can sense some ajna building up here. Not funny. Sorry.
So let me make it worse.
Trauma. You know, there's too much at stake here to make those jokes. I'm just.
We got a laughing emoji, so people are laughing. Okay?
It's all right.
But you're pushing it, okay?
I am. I will not do that again. But when it comes to deadlines, guys, again, everybody's different with their deadlines. Usually when at a minimum, the financial aid deadlines are going to be when the admissions deadlines are, but it's usually after. Okay. And for FAFSA only schools, all these state early action deadlines, they're not happening anytime soon. Okay. So,
but look them up, and then send them in like a few days before the earliest deadline. Might be November 15th. It might be December 1. So
exactly, but
deadlines really matter. It could mean a lot of difference in a need-based package. So
they do, but let me tell you, like, very few. There's maybe there's a dozen in the country thereabouts that have November 1st financial aid deadlines, and I can tell you, even if you go find out that one of yours that you applied early decision or early action to has a November 1st deadline, you're not screwed, especially this year. But obviously the urgency is there, right? Most schools that have even that require the CSS profile, it's November 15th, it's December 1st, December 15th. So in all likelihood, you guys are totally fine. And even if there's a small percentage of you that are like, oh my God, our school had a November 1st deadline. Again, there's a dozen-ish schools in the country that apply there. You're going to be fine. Okay. But anyways, we're getting that question a lot here. So
okay.
Takeaway is figure out your school's deadlines.
Okay. So here's some parent employment stuff. You'll notice the first two here, not required. So just leave it alone. They don't need to know if you have a state-sponsored plan. They're not making it required. Don't click anything. But you notice this question on the far right here. This is now a required question as of last year. Now, if you didn't make pre-tax retirement contributions when I showed you that screenshot, this will not pop up. So you will be able to avoid answering this question, which is great. But if you did and you put down, I put 5,000 in my 401k, you're going to see this. Again, if you have a low balance and you're getting older, that could maybe help you because the colleges will look and say, oh, the parents, they're trying, but, they're getting close to retirement. They don't have that much there. They could be more generous. But if you have a nice balance, and it is what it is, it's required. No reason to get upset about it. I've already gotten upset enough for everybody on the webinar, so we can just move on. You got to answer it, right? And you should always be honest. I already touched on this. So they're going to, when you say you're divorced, they're going to basically define who the custodial parent, and you're going to tell them who's submitting the form, where the child, with the student, okay, follows the same exact definition as the FAFSA. Then they're going to ask some questions. The year of your separation, that's required. The year of divorce isn't, most likely because what if you're not divorced? They can't make it required if you're not done yet. They will ask about the non-custodial parent that's going to submit their own form. This is a required question, but if I were divorced, which I'm not, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I would just say unknown. Even if you're, I know some people have great relationships with their exes and you might know their exact title. I just would let the other person answer those questions because it's them. They're going to answer them the most accurate compared to you. I just wouldn't get into it. Same thing here. What do you think your ex is going to contribute? I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, right? You just, and they need to be careful how they answer that. And I'm going to go over that question in a minute for the custodial parent, and the same thinking goes in with the non-custodial parent. And then there's another question about, do you have a written agreement? If you do, definitely mark yes if that's laid out. They ask about child support received, child support paid. These are all required questions, pretty straightforward. You need to hit those. They get into your housing, and somebody already asked, how do I value my home? And I already talked about that on the CSS slide. But there is a housing calculator. I don't know if I'll put it in the chat once Matt's sharing a screen in a little bit, but it asks a lot the same questions that the CSS does. So it's kind of a big coincidence, but you got to go through, answer these questions. Don't overestimate your market value. What's your monthly housing payment? And this is P&I only, your principal and interest only. So it's pretty straightforward, and it is part of it. Then they're going to get into your assets and checking and savings and your investments. And then over here, they're going to ask you, what of these are applicable? You've got to answer yes or no because they're all required. When you get to other pages, they might not make questions required. So just really be paying attention to that. As far as like real estate properties, you've got to answer all these, so answer them. But just kind of train yourself that when you're looking at questions to look for this required piece. This question over here is completely nutty in my opinion. I've never had a parent who has said yes to this question, and some of this in here, being a financial advisor in my background, it isn't even accurate. I won't bore you with that. I will especially bore Matt if I go into that, and he'll roll his eyes, so I'm not even going to get into it. But most people, this is no. To this question, that's some real estate questions. They're going to ask the same income and asset questions for your child. So I'm not going to go through all those because they're very similar. But they do ask, and this is different, so that's why I grabbed it. Is the child a beneficiary of a trust? And you mark yes or no. They ask some really detailed questions about the trust, which I really like. Is it available? Because a lot of these trusts aren't available to a student until they're 25, right? So that shouldn't be part of the equation, and that's appealable. And they ask the type of trust and who established the trust. So those are some questions if that's applicable. This question is by far the question that most parents are not going to know how to answer, and it makes a lot of sense. How much are you willing to pay for that year, just the academic year? So you want to be really careful how you answer this. You never want to put a number that's higher than your SAI. So you need to look at the SAIs. If you've set up your MyCap account, you're looking at good estimates of your SAIs. Most parents would never put anything remotely close to their SAI because they can't afford that. But just keep that in mind, because if you put a number that's too high, then the college will say, oh, mom can pay that? Great, we're changing the SAI to that. So you want to be really careful what you put here. Some families are going to put 0. Some families are going to take their 529 and divide it by 4. Some families are going to put $5,000. So just, again, don't want to overestimate on this question. And, it is what it is. Like, don't worry about, I got to put a really big number for my child to get into the school. No, this isn't an admission application. Okay. It's hard for me to see because I got all this Zoom stuff in the way. Few more questions on that same page. I just broke it into 2 here. This is another one. They're asking if relatives are going to help for that year, unless somebody has said, I guarantee you I'm giving $5,000 to pay for the 24-25 school year. If that's the case, put it in there. You got to be honest. But if it's, I know grandma has a 529, but I don't know when we're going to use it or what her intentions are. If you really don't know, then you can put 0. Okay. You just want to be honest, but don't overestimate. When you get to the end, there's a special circumstances section, and they're going to say, are any of these applicable? Just like all these questions that are not required, we recommend you say none, even if you lost your job. Just talked to a dad yesterday. I said, save it. You want to get the financial aid package, and then you want to reach out. You have more leverage, and you can say, thank you for that package, but there's some stuff I need to share. So we recommend you do it this way. If you're going to lay in bed and it's going to bother you and you're not going to sleep, again, it's your form. You do what makes you feel the best. But we really strongly suggest this. We've done this for years, and it can really help on appeal. It can mean a lot more money on a need-based appeal. So keep that in mind. And then if you might see supplemental questions at the end, you might not. It totally depends on the school. The schools that you're sending it to, there's a pool of questions. They can say, hey, ask these 3 from that pool. Most of the time they're not required, but you're going to see them there. And you want to look through them. When you get to the end here, you're at the end. If you've got a fee waiver, these will all be 0. This is where you're going to make your payment. You got to whip out that credit card, one of the many places you're paying in this process, and you'll put that in, and then that's how you'll know that you're actually submitting it. But just remember, like I said, make sure you review it ahead of time. And let me just do a quick screen share if it hasn't closed me out here, which it did. Okay. Well, basically I wanted, you know what, I'm just going to do
Go
a
ahead.
screenshot.
Well, Peggy, if you
I
want.
can just do it. I'll do a screenshot. What I wanted to show you was a dashboard of a submitted one. And basically you can do, there's a place that says, do you want to submit a correction? All your schools are there. Then there's a section at the bottom that says IDOC. And that's the next step in this process. You're going to have to upload tax returns to IDOC, or maybe, and I did a question in the Q&A, maybe into a family portal, maybe into the school's portal that your child has. So it just depends, but that's always the step that comes after this. You're done with the forms. You can go have a nice night. And then that's the next piece, is uploading these forms. So you'll see it listed on the dashboard after you've submitted.
And to me, it's like, it's always a little bit of a demoralizing step, right? Because it's like, we're finally done. Boom, we did it. High fives, right? And then I get this email. Usually it's the next day, right? Usually it's within 24 hours. Sometimes it can be a little bit quicker, from the College Board. Now you have to complete the IDOC. It's like, what? Right. But again, same thing, like pause. They are just asking you to upload tax returns and W-2s and these verifying documents. There's no hard deadline for that. So, you don't have this. If the school has a November 15th deadline, IDOC does not need to be completed by then. Right. So you can kind of chill out around that. Again, we have a ton of resources around the IDOC kind of verification part of the process as well, but just be prepared for that, because it is something that I think it's not on a lot of people's radar, right? You hear about the FAFSA, you hear about the CSS profile, I complete the FAFSA, and now I'm like, okay, I'm not done, right? So
right, yeah, it's a little demoralizing, and that's where some of that not required information, they're looking at your tax return, so you're not hiding it. They're going to see it. Most of it goes into your adjusted gross income that you're disclosing anyways. Yeah, so I'll do a screenshot of that, and here's just good summary of a bunch
you're
of stuff.
you're still sharing the Peggy, you're just sharing the, I don't know if you know, but the CSS profile.
Oh, I'm not sharing the slide deck. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay. Here's just good summary here. Number 1, don't answer questions that aren't required. Don't overvalue any of your real estate. Honestly, you want to be honest, but don't overvalue it. 529s, I didn't mention this. 529s that you own as a parent are an asset of yours, not an asset of your child. Put it under your investment question. Grandma and grandpa have a 529. You don't put that under your asset or your child's assets. don't overstate what you can pay, covered that. Don't overestimate your future earnings. Save that special circumstances for your appeal. And, we just talked about a minute ago, just keep an eye on the deadlines. If you happen to have missed one now, take a deep breath, just get it in ASAP, basically. Okay, so that's that. And since we began with a whale and we were relaxing, now we're going to end with my dog Ashling. So he can't, how can you not be relaxed looking at my dog, right? My bull mastiff. So, but if you want to be even more relaxed, you can let Cap help you, support you in this step of the process, just like we support throughout this journey that you're on. And so I got all these hearts for my puppy dog.
As you should.
So I'm going to let you talk about, how we can support all of you, to get
So I mean, look, obviously our hope is, and our goal is, just like we say, for those of you, if no matter where you are on the spectrum, we're supporting you, right? And we like to think that we provide more resources than you're going to find anywhere else. If you want more help beyond that, specifically when it comes to this, right? Here's what we're recommending. And there's two ways that we can help you. If you're kind of all over the CSS profile and you're really comfortable with these forms and the FAFSA or whatever, what we recommend is book an hour with one of us. It could be myself, it could be Peg. We have the former University of Southern California financial aid director, JP, the current financial aid directors at Harvard, MIT, University of Oklahoma, Denison University, and just folks that have been doing this forever, right? Like Peg and myself. I think it's a very, very worthwhile investment. Book an hour with one of us before you hit submit on the CSS profile and have us give the thing a once over. Okay. And actually, we had it in an internal meeting this morning. Peggy was on it too. JP, who I mentioned, who was at USC, he says on average, he thinks, and he said, truthfully, he said this was anecdotal, but 3 out of 4 families will make a mistake that costs them more money when they submit the financial aid applications, right? So again, that's not an exact science by any stretch, but just make sure that you're not one of those, right? And have one of us gut check your forms before you hit submit at a minimum. If you're somebody that's just like totally overwhelmed with these forms in general, and it's just not your sweet spot, and you just understand kind of what's at risk here, or the magnitude of this whole thing, we can do these forms for you, right? We will complete the CSS profile. Our team will manually complete it for you. We will do the FAFSA for you. And then you can meet with us a couple different times to make sure that, we'll go over the form together, make sure that the strategy is right. And that's what this package looks like, right? Our FAFSA and CSS profile package. A couple noteworthy things here. We're only doing 10 of them because just we're full already with the families that we already have. So we can only do these for 10 families. So there's a little bit of urgency if you want to do that. And you got to sign up tonight if you have an 11:15 deadline. If you have an 11:15 deadline, you just have to we got to get you onboarded this week and then meet next week and then, get ready to hit submit on the forms before 11:15. So if that's something that you want to do, especially if you have an 11:15 deadline, or you just think, even if you don't, that you'd like to do this, take advantage of this tonight. And Peggy, if you haven't already, just if you could put this link in the chat, please. Yeah. That's my firm recommendation, right? So if you don't want to do these forms, let us take care of it for you. We will complete them, and then we will go over the strategy and the whole deal with you.
You'll be submitting your forms.
You'll be submitting.
You will be reviewing them, especially with the FAFSA. Like we're not completely doing that for you. We're carrying some of your burden here. You're gonna review it. It's your form, and you're gonna hit submit on both forms. Yeah.
I think a good comp is like your taxes, right? At the end of the day, you're signing off on those taxes. You might have a CPA that does the heavy lifting for you, but you're signing off on those yourself ultimately. At a minimum, again, book an hour, right? And how you book an hour through your MyCap platform is just up here. Instead of a talk to an expert, it'll just say upgrade, and you choose that premium plus hour. Again, especially if you have an 11:15 deadline, do that tonight to make sure that you get on our calendar here. And then again, if you're interested in having us just take care of these for you, do this tonight, because again, we can only do it for 10 families, especially for 11:15. I'm confident we'll open that up again after 11:15. But again, you can see what it entails here, where you'll be paired up as soon as you sign up and pay through this link. You're going to get a notification from our office say, here's what we need from you. And then you'll get assigned to one of the pros on our team. We will prepare the forms. We'll meet together to go over them. And then essentially, you will hit submit there, or we'll hit submit together, on those meetings, however you prefer. But, like we always say, and this is Peggy's line that I always steal from her, and you can say it in your way, Peggy, but no matter what you do, just continue to pay attention, right? Don't put your head back in the sand. For plenty of folks, it's you're not going to invest in either of these, but just continue to pay attention, right? Hopefully these types of things are offering a lot of value. We're not going anywhere. But again, if you want some professional guidance, I think this is a great way to, especially with what's at stake here, a great way to invest a little bit of money before you hit submit on these packages, or just let us take over here for you. Anything else to add, my buddy?
No. Yeah, as you said, you got my jargon there. And that really, if you're on this webinar, you're taking this seriously, just whatever support you need, just grab it, because you really drifting through this process can be really expensive. And it really, like I said several times, none of this has to be as stressful as it tends to be for a lot of families. And we got a lot of great comments in the chat, so thank you for that. Sounds like we have relieved a lot of stress here, even with somebody's jokes that were not stress relieving.
Sometimes they backfire, Peggy.
Oh, somebody wants me to put the puppy back up to close. What can I say?
You know me, Peggy. I always got to shoot my shot. Get Ashlyn back on there. Get me off the
star. She's the star of the show, my baby girl.
As she should be. You know what we got to do, Peggy? We got to get the real hounds on here.
I know. I got to get her up here on the chair.
We got to get our comfort dogs on here. But look, because we're getting a ton of questions on how to value real estate and home equity in my business, and like who should be the custodial parent. That's the stuff where we can't advise on that, guys, unless we get our arms around your situation. So that's where you have to book an hour so we can unpack that, or have us, take over and do the forms and make those recommendations on your behalf. But those are things where it would be reckless for us to, again, without having some real specifics, make firm recommendations.
Yeah, and we can help talk through if you're divorced and there's some issues with the other parent.
Sorry, Peggy, I'm glad we got this question. You and I talked about this earlier. We forgot to say it. Even if you've already submitted the CSS profile, what I would recommend is book the hour. It doesn't make sense to do the form package, but do the hour so we can review that and see if there's some corrections that we would recommend.
What did I do? I lost Ashling. All right. I hit a button and I lost Ashling. Sorry. If the presentation said do not include 529s, no, what it said was include 529s as a parent asset. That's what it said. Yeah. And that's a big mistake, and that can cost a lot of money because parent assets are assessed much lower than kids' assets. So that's why, to Matt's point, another set of eyes if you've already submitted it. And we always get people like, I put in my retirement assets. That we can help you kind of back that stuff out. Don't beat yourself up. It's a process, and you haven't been through it before, a lot of you. So,
all right, buddy.
All right. Well, we're pretty much almost at the top of the hour here. So
hold on, let me check real quick where we're at. We got We got 3 more. If anybody else wants to do the form filing package, we got 3 more left. So it's probably now or not now or never, but now we're a couple more weeks or whatever, at least. So all right, Peg.
All right, everybody. Well, have a great night. Thanks for being here.
Good night. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, take
Great
care.
question too. Very, very engaged crowd, impressive crowd, to be honest. Thank you guys.
Take care.